really excited to introduce Jeff and Tim Ormiston today. Jeff is a native of Fort Wayne. He formerly worked in the steel industry and as a full-time naturalist with Allen County Parks, just at our neighbor right over there at Fox Island. He currently gives nature instruction to homeschool classes. He also raises monarch butterflies and luna moths, and he's been carving for about 7 years. And then Tim, he's also here a native of Fort Wayne. He is retired engineering project manager in the glass industry. He's a volunteer trail guide for Little River, for us, and Allen County Parks. He's a board member for us as well, which is really great. And he has also been carving for about 7 years. And so they teach basic carving classes in the Fort Wayne region, which I'm sure they'll be talking about today too. So if you could.
So wood spirits. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was going through some YouTube videos looking for something, who knows what, and I ran across a tutorial on carving these little wood spirits. The gentleman's name was Doug Linker. He's Canadian, kind of a cool dude, multi-talented, and he went through how to carve little faces, and I thought, wow, that'd be cool if I could carve faces on hiking sticks. So I thought, well, that's not going to work. So I thought, well, what if I just take and make faces in little pieces and hang them, these guys along the trails at Fox Island, and let the people find them for free, generate a little interest in the park, a little traffic in and out of the park, and give the people something to do besides stare at their feet while they were hiking the trails. So I think I put out maybe half a dozen first go around, and it seemed to be pretty popular. And shortly thereafter, Tim and his wife moved back to Fort Wayne. And I think at some point I said, Tim, look at this YouTube video and see what you think. Tim was a pretty crafty person, and I thought Tim might enjoy this, and so Tim got hooked on carving also. Now, I'll confess, Tim is at a different level than I am. He does excellent work. Our work is different, as you'll see up here. So we started in tandem putting these spirits out along the trails, and now we usually put out twice a year, the vernal equinox and the autumnal equinox is what we try to hit every year.
These parks stumble across spirits which emerge from hiding adorning trees along the trails.
But behind the magic of these protectors of the forests are two brothers who hope their hobby will encourage others to explore the beauty out in 21 country.
We hang these up at the changes of the season. The philosophy of wood spirits started out in the Black Forest of Germany. Each tree contained a wood spirit that protected that tree, and it also protected the travelers in the forest. So what I do, I try not to hide these wood spirits, but also I locate them where they're not easily seen. So a lot of times I'll try to put them into a background that they blend into. Originally I was going through YouTube videos and saw this wood carver who does tutorials on how to carve these, and he had one tutorial just dedicated to wood spirits. So then I thought, well, what if I would just carve the faces in little pieces of wood, and maybe I could hang them along the trails of the park and let people know and let people find them.
Brother Jeff, he had the idea of hanging wood spirits, and I thought, I've been doing that, and would he like to have a few more to add to his 10-minute carve every day? So I really tried to get a knife in my hand, a piece of wood, and do something. To do a spirit, like it's hung up on the trails, it'll take between an hour and 2 hours, depending on the detail and whether the bark gets removed or if it's just simply cut into the piece. When it comes to wood spirits, there's all kind of stories about what they are, but it's a being that is in the wood, and I consider taking a piece of wood, this happens to be mulberry, And looking at the wood, it has a knot in it, and so what may be of interest to find what's in the wood. And the wood usually tells you what you can't do or what you can do. So the knot became a whistle mouth. And so the wood kind of told me what I should do with it, and that's why they are all different.
Matea was pretty much left intact during the derecho that we had come through on June the 13th. Fox Island, a completely different story. A lot of what I've carved here recently are pieces of trees that were actually blown down during the storm. So to be able to pick those up and carve images on them and faces on them and have other individuals find them, I think that's a great connection.
And it's a pretty popular activity at the parks. What we do, we carve, we decide what day we're gonna hang them, and again, change of the seasons when we try to hit, but I give them about a 2-week notice on Facebook, say, hey, they're gonna be out there, watch this space for future developments, and then usually in the afternoon, maybe about a half an hour before the park closes, then I post that the spirits are available. What they've seen is lines of people waiting at the gate the next day, because they usually only last about a week, possibly 2 weeks, once we hang them. Again,
Cool.
we don't hide them, but we don't make them easy to see. They're in open view. There's nothing in front of them. We don't put them behind anything. Occasionally I might put them in a knot hole, in a little stump or something, but anyhow, that's what we do. One of the stories is that because these wood spirits protect not only the trees of the forest, but the travelers within the forest. The hikers, the travelers, people that were in the forest on a regular basis, they felt that if you knocked on a tree as you first enter the forest, that would awaken these spirits and it would protect you as you walked through the forest. One time, a friend of mine at Fox Island had a friend of hers who was in the hospital. And she said, Jeff, would you carve one of these spirits for my friend and I'll give it to her so she can keep it by herself, by her bed in the hospital. She came back about a week later and she said, my friend who they felt was not going to do well, she is much better. And she said, I'm crediting your spirit for that. I had one mom come up to us, I forget, it was some event, and she said, hey, my daughter found one of your wood spirits on the forest. I said, that's great. She said, we put it next to her bed. She said, before that wood spirit appeared next to her bed, she wouldn't stay in her own bed every night, all night. She always came and got in bed with us. But since we put the wood spirit and told her that protects her at night, she stays in her bed. So those are the kind of stories and the feedback that makes this all worthwhile. So this is just a few of them, one of the hangings. And you can see the difference, Tim's carvings, my carvings, but there's such a variety of possibilities of faces. For me, I could just carve these little guys all the time. Tim has branched out into other areas, but I'm okay with trying to come up with different faces. And even though you might try to duplicate a face, they're all different. You can never duplicate that because they're handmade. And a lot of times as you're carving a face, Tim said, that piece of wood will talk to you, will speak to you. Sometimes you can actually see the face that you want to carve in them as you're carving. I don't know how many faces I've completely cut the face off and restarted. So these are just some of the stories associated with wood spirits and forests. Jessie McCrae, that you just saw a quick flash of her. Jessie McCrae and Gilly Dew, Apple Tree Man, Dryads. Have you ever heard of Dryads before? Yeah.
Only
We'll
like
talk a
the
little bit.
mushroom.
Pardon me?
Only the mushroom.
We're going to talk about that in just a
Okay.
second. Yeah. Of course, our wood spirits, brownies. You know about brownies? You know, Girl Scouts? Used to be that was the starting point, was the brownies.
It's not?
Brownies are spirits, and most of these are Celtic, Irish, Scottish type of spirits and folklore. Brownies are little people that come in and help you out at night. When you're sleeping, they come into your house and do work for you at night. Come in and they will stay and do the work at night only if you don't compliment them. If you write them a note, say thank you, this is wonderful, they'll leave and never come back. They just want to do their own thing and be done with it. It's good though if you might leave them some tea, some sweet little cookie, or a crow, or a scone. They like food, but they don't want to be complimented. Those are brownies.
Would it be wrong to leave them a brownie?
Well, I don't think they would appreciate that. Okay, so that's brownies. Green Man, we'll talk a little bit more about Green Man. Let's talk about Jessie McCrae. The story is that Jessie was a little girl in the Highlands of Scotland who loved to be out in nature. And she would spend as much time as she could. And one day she got her basket and was going to go out and pick berries out of the forest. So Jessie goes out early afternoon, picked the berries and got a bunch of berries in her basket, and then she didn't want to go back home yet. So she starts exploring, communing with nature, as it were, and she wasn't paying attention where she was in the forest, was traveling down trails that she wasn't familiar with, and she wasn't paying attention to the sun going down. And finally she realized it's getting dark. And she thought, I don't know where I'm at. I don't recognize the trails. How am I going to get home? So she tried going down a few of the trails, couldn't find her way back, and of course Jessie sat down under a tree and started to sob. And the longer she sat there, the louder her sobs got. Jessie was sitting there sobbing, and she heard something behind her, and she turned around, and there was a stranger standing there. It was Gilly Dew. Kind of a strange looking dude. He was completely covered in leaves and mosses, dark hair, dark complexion, and he said, little girl, why are you sobbing like this? She said, I'm lost. She said, I can't find my way home. I'm afraid I'm going to have to spend the night in the forest. Gilly Dew says, you follow me and I will get you back home safely. So Gilly Dew takes off down the trail. He stops every few yards and turns around and makes sure that Jessie's following him. So finally they get back to the edge of the forest. Jessie can see her home, see the village, and she thanks him. And he says, just make me one promise that you don't tell the adults in the village. They don't like me. He says, I'm here to help children that might be lost in any way, but please don't tell the adults. So that's the story of Jessie McCrae and Gilly Dew. Apple Tree Man. Apple Tree Man is a spirit that lives in the oldest tree in any orchard. All orchards, the oldest tree has Apple Tree Man who inhabits that tree. Apple Tree Man, as long as you take care of him and are nice to him, he is responsible for the production of that orchard. What you need to do, though, is the last bit of cider produced from those apples in that orchard in the fall of the year, you need to take some of that cider and sprinkle it underneath his tree, the oldest tree that he lives in, as well as on the leaves and branches of that tree, and maybe put some cookies or something on it. Then he will take care of you. So, that's apple tree man. We talked about dryads. Dryad saddle.
Yeah.
You familiar with that? Yes. Well, you know what a dryad is? A dryad is a mythological wood nymph, female, who actually lives in a specific tree in the forest. She lives there. If you're lucky, when you're out traveling on Dryad Saddle, you might see a little dryad sitting on there, napping in the afternoon, maybe having a little snack. But it's not unusual to see a little dryad sitting on Dryad Saddle. So this is a Dryad Saddle here. This is an old one. That would be pretty leathery. Would not taste very good. This is a fresh one and behind my house, so that would sliced up and maybe cooked in a little butter would be pretty tasty. Green Man. Green Man is pretty popular. A wood spirit, usually shown with actual vines and branches coming out of his mouth. We were in Scotland a few years ago. What was it? 2012. We were in Scotland. In Rosslyn Chapel, there are like 100 of these carvings carved into the marble on the inside of the church of just Green Man. And he is a symbol of continuing life, renewal of life, and so a pretty popular wood spirit. Okay? And here's some more, like I said, carve whatever your imagination, how far your imagination can go, that's what you carve into your faces. Here's a female up here, she's a little, lost her head a little bit, but female on this side. Sometimes you just carve a turtle. This turtle ended up along the lake at Matea Park. And again, the 8-pointed star, and occasionally a Native American might show up. Usually we put the Native Americans at Matea, fitting tribute to our Potawatomi.
So I think we have some decent time.
Yeah, you do.
And just to explain a little bit about carving process, we thought maybe you'd be interested in that. So if you're interested later, you can look. We each put some pieces up here. We have a progression of starting from a block or a branch, something that's got bark on it. I like to carve these pieces out of branches if I can. And it's not a problem to cut out of blocks, but that's just my preference when we're putting things out into the forest. So you just start with a block. I have learned a little bit about basic geometry of a face. Every carving, you're trying to give an illusion of what it is that is in there. And so it doesn't have to be perfect. Some carvers, they do excellent work that is perfect anatomy. I don't worry about that as long as you think it's what I'm trying to portray. I thought I'd take you through the steps that I take. You might find that interesting. And it's the same process. And I would suggest that probably Jeff does a similar process. So let's see this guy.
We were asked, do we wear gloves?
Hello.
I always wear a glove.
Hello.
Tim always wears a glove. A couple times I have gotten in a hurry, not worn a glove, and I paid the price for it.
Always know where the sharp end is and where the pointy end is. Because some knives, this knife is straight on the sharp edge, but there's some that are upsweep, and so they're sharp on the curve. And if you forget which end's up, you end up with a cut bump. So this is linden wood. Brother Pat, he had a tree that was damaged a while back, and linden is almost identical to basswood. It's very similar. It's soft. So I picked linden to show this. So this is just a regular branch, and when I'm carving, this is my end point. So this is very similar to the ones that went out today. So some I like to keep the bark on, and then others, like some that you have, I take the bark off. And so if there's something interesting, like knots, or the bark is an interesting color, I try to keep it on if I think the bark will stay on when I give it to you. So I like starting, well, you can see the progression. I'll just show this, that you start with a hunk of branch, and I always shape it. You need a nose to start with, and so I kind of put an angle on there to get a nose to start. I find out where that nose is, always with, and then we have a brow line. We have where our eyes are. So I identify where that is, and once you have the nose and the brow line, then you have to I like to make the nose next, so that I know exactly where that center feature is, and then everything goes out from there. I make the width of the nose, identify where that is. I still, my eyes are in here somewhere, and I've already formed the mouth. And then getting really close at this point, I've formed a hairline, if that's what it's going to be. At this point, I really need to think about, am I going to put a mustache on? Is it going to be big or flowing? Is it a beard? What is the hair going to look like? And you saw many examples of, this guy probably is going to just be, I don't know, maybe bark grooves or some other kind of radiant look here. But at this point, I pretty much got the face in general, and now I start putting details in to where I end up with the final details, the eyes, the texture of the hair, and things like that. Takes a lot more time at this point to go from this point to this point. That probably is as much time as it takes to get to this point here. Okay, so we start with that, and I like to pick about the middle, and so it just, this wood cuts pretty soft. I've got a nice sharp knife, and Allie, I'm going to make some chips that we'll have to clean up later.
That's okay.
That's okay. And I won't go through the whole thing based on our time, but I just want to give you an idea of what I do. And so once you pick roughly in the middle of, I want to make my canvas available as much, because I don't know what it's going to be yet. This one has a knot on the side, so I may want to flow the hair around that knot. So once I get the nose started, and I've got this set up, I am going to put probably a beard or under the chin down here, so I need to start forming that to the shape of the face. I also, on the nose, we need to get the nose formed a little bit. And all of our noses, if you want to do a face, look in the mirror. That's the best way, and many of the carvers do that. So always have a mirror nearby, or your phone. Take a photo of yourself and look at yourself. I like checking to make sure I'm somewhat symmetric in making this nose to the next step. Our noses are upturned. And then I get to the next step where I've identified the nose, or the nose. I've got this pretty well symmetric. It doesn't have to be perfect at this point, but now I set where the brow line is. Well, in our face, the length of the nose, that's the same length from your brow line to your hairline. It's also the same length from the bottom of your nose to your chin. And if you remember that rule, so in this next step, it's really getting the nose laid in and trying to get where the eyes are going to go next. And it's just about making a mound where the nose is. So this wood cuts pretty soft, And I try to make it as symmetrical as possible at this point, just to get it close. And so here I am. I've taken the points off. I've got the mound of the nose set, and my eyes are going to go in here eventually. So now I want to pick the width of the nose. I generally don't mark things, but for the sake of doing it so you can see it, I'll just put marks where I want my nose to go. And I make a couple deep plunging cuts, I'll call that, to identify the side of the nose. So there, that's just rough then, to give you the idea that if I want to make like a radiant, be spiky up this way, then I just take that shelf off and make this angle into this brow line. Again, folks, I'm just trying to give you a little idea of the process. So, pretty quickly now I've got this face just roughed out, and I'm going to cut in to make the brow look a little bit better. So we'll go to this guy. You can make this brow whatever you want. It could be heavy, the hair could be heavy, but you don't have to make a brow that is a true brow, because if it's raised and you put some texture in for hair, it appears to be a brow, and that's all you want to do.
Can you show us how you do the eyes?
Oh, the eyes. I thought a lot about doing eyes, and I decided I was not going to attempt that here
Okay.
for timing. But just to give you an idea then on this, so once I get to this point, if I want to put a mouth in or a lip, I like putting lower lips in just to kind of give the illusion where that mouth is. And so I think I can get this in pretty quick. So, with this, it's just all hair. But if I want to show that there's a lip, just make a couple stop cuts. And then you push up into that stop cut and over to the hair, and then make a little triangle cut in here so that he's got a big pouty lower lip. But you can add a lip. And I don't know if you can see kind of well enough, so that gives you an idea of the steps. And it's another, to make this guy look like this guy, realistically, it's probably 30 minutes of detail carving.
Thank you guys so much. That was
Okay.
such a treat to learn about. All right, well, thanks everyone. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.